Hey, recently there was a little bit of a discussion again about Make Germany Great Again, which was sort of my internet campaign for seeing if we could make Germany competitive. And it's more or less done now. I don't get many lists again now. Not again. I don't get many lists now that actually try to do this with Germany, competitive lists. So I guess we're at a point where Germany isn't really competitive. So I made a PowerPoint about that. Let's go and see that one then. Let me just like that. So this is my response to a comment in one of my videos where someone said like, so Germany isn't really, and what would be your suggestions for how to do that? So this is how I think that Warlord Games should make Germany great again. Let's start with what's wrong. Um, Germany right now lacks a specific playstyle. So, like in some nations, when you play some nations, there's this. It lends itself well to certain play style. So you can be really aggressive with Polish. You can be aggressive with assault Brits. You can sit back and shoot with all of your Darker if you're playing Americans. Um, you have your anti-tank if you're playing Soviets. But Germans don't really have a play style in the game. They have a little bit of everything, but it's all something that they're paying for. It also lacks very specific builds. So go and watch my videos on army builds. I think that that is a real thing that we do see some armies lending itself well to certain types of builds. Germany don't. They have more or less the mixed bag and the noob basher multi-rocket launcher spam, but none of them are very competitive. And you need with Germans the mixed bag. You can do that way better with Americans. So, I mean, they're not. They're just not there. They don't have a specific build that's this is the power build that you go to every time. So like Brits have with Gurkhas, for instance. Um, and they also lack good affordable units. That combination of units that are affordable in points and are good in the game, that's not really there for the Germans. They have a few units like Nebelwerfers and the Polizeitank or the Darker Panzer III. All of them are good, but they're not like massively good. So they're not like this is the one unit that you want to have in every single German platoon. Well, you might argue that there are others that you might want. So it's not really like this is where it's at. So and that makes everything sort of meh, average. It's really difficult for people to find out how they can play a list that just gives them a little boost, right? That's what you're looking for when you're picking your competitive nation. You're looking for a nation that gives you a little boost. Not massively, because I don't believe that it's the list and the nation that wins, but something where you don't feel like you're handicapping yourself. And Germany just doesn't. It's just average. Everything is meh, and you're paying for everything. So everything turns expensive. That's wrong. Now, how have people tried to fix this? Well, there are a lot of different things that have been done. I will point to adjusting the points. The Jugger Pack has done this, given huge discounts to heavy tanks. Um, for some nations, you can see free stuff, right? The French have free stuff. The Brits have free stuff. Soviets have free stuff. The Germans don't. But you could argue that would be one of the places where you could fix it. I haven't really seen anyone try to do this yet, but hey, um, it's one of the ways you could do it. You could also make a national rule that sort of lends itself to one style of play, like one build, like Fnatic for Japanese, which really supports like hordes. And you could also say like Up and Atom for Brits that really support veteran assaulters, that sort of thing. Like give a national rule that give a specific type of play, right? Americans with their moving fire. Um, I've also seen a lot of people like TOs try to fix this with comp. So, for instance, the Danish Nationals is this weekend as I'm taping this. I'm taping this on Thursday, and it all starts for me tomorrow, but for the players on Saturday. So, and one of the things we did there was we had fairly high points, low order dice, and single platoon. That lends itself well to some builds and potentially lends itself well to taking heavier tanks, of which the Germans have all the heavy tanks, right? You also see in some national metas that they will allow certain units just say this is okay, this is always okay to take. So, for instance, the Schützen that are really theater only, they are they're only the Western Desert Theater, but a lot of people will say they are okay, and that will be the fix to make Germany great again. Just allowing that unit because Schützen are really good. They get an LMG for free. Um, or you could go and break a few game mechanics. We've just recently seen this with a boost that the Italians got, where their Cavalleria suddenly can charge twice in a turn, which is breaking the game mechanics, but it makes the Cavalleria good. The same thing happened with the Soviets and their storm groups. Armed to the teeth, that means that they ignore defensive obstacles and can always fight first. The recent fact also did this, by the way, with Mountaineer, which is amazing for people who have Mountaineer. So you could break a few of the regular game mechanics and just say, well, this unit is allowed to do that, and then all of a sudden, wow, then you have a fix. So these are some of the potential fixes that you could do. Now, my suggestions to Warlord Games would be, and Warlord Games, if you're listening, this is it. This is where the gold is, right? To make a variation of national rules that German players can choose between, like you have for the Brits and now for the Italians with Case Blue. That has always been my main suggestion. That is what would make Germany great again. That is what would make them competitive again. And it would also, by the way, be really in tune with the theme of the German army because you could suddenly start building, well, saying that mine is Panzer Grenadiers or mine is SS or mine is Heer on the Eastern Front. You could start. It would lend itself well to theme because the different elements of the German army had different things that they were good at different times in different theaters, right? So I'm not suggesting that you pull in theaters, but I'm suggesting that a little bit, right? It at least get inspired by the theaters. So I've made 5 suggested national special rules that I think the Germans should be able to choose between. Oh, and by the way, they still keep the regular ones. I mean, they are not they're situational at best. I mean, the one where the Germans Hitler's Barsaw rule get an extra shot, okay, not massively beneficial, you might see later on that it has potential. And the extra snap 2, it doesn't win games, right? So the only one that's really good is the NCO thing where you never really kill the NCO, but um, again, situational at best, right? So these would be actual benefits to playstyle and to competitiveness and not just to certain situations. So let's go through them. I have mechanized assault tactics, MG 42 tactics, the Desert Fox, ambush tactics, and desperate last stand. Now, the first one, mechanized assault tactics. It's pretty easy, but it depends on 2 things. Having a Hanomag that's worth buying, So that would be around 60 points, not around the 80 points, 89 points that it is right now. A 60-point Hanomag that could transport 8 to 9 people. So an SDK of set something. It needs to be around 60 points, otherwise it's too expensive, and it needs to be able to transport between 6 and 9 dudes. And then you give all units that have Panzer Grenadier in the title the ability to assault out of the vehicle. So they can run 12-inch from the vehicle, charge a unit that's outside. That is what they did in real life, by the way. That is what they did. They went straight from their Hanomag straight into close combat. And close combat not being hand-to-hand combat necessarily, right? Close combat in bold action doesn't represent people like going at it with spades or whatever. Although it does that as well, but it represents throwing grenades and shooting at point blank and pushing, right? Pushing and taking a position from an enemy. So that is what I think the Panzer Grenadiers should be able to do. Break the standard rules of the game just a little bit for these few units. That would lend itself to a cool army build where you have lots of Hanomags with Panzer Grenadiers in them and you charge an enemy, right? Really cool army build and look cool and feel thematic and it could actually work. I think this could work. The second one would be MG42 tactics. Now the MG42 was everywhere in the German army. It was Hitler's Bossol. It was the thing that everyone had, and they used it massively. It was like even the sound of it, the constant bam 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 of that MG42. The Allied troops were sometimes more scared by that because they knew an LMG was firing at them from someplace. So my suggestion is that if you pick the tactics or the national rule MG42, then you get a single LMG for free on all infantry units that can take an LMG. So basically make them all Schützen. Now, some people might say this is completely overpowered, but for a regular single platoon, generic reinforced platoon, you have 5 infantry choices. An LMG is 20 points. That would be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 points of free stuff. Exactly the same that the Soviets get and that the Brits get. 100 points of free stuff. Not overpowered at all. Give them all a single free LMG. Give it away. That, I think, would be cool. It would lend itself well, and it could synergize well with the Hitler's Bossol rule, right? So it would lend itself well to a style of play that we're not seeing that much in Europe right now, but that I know from South Africa, called the camping Germans, where you sit back and you shoot at everything in your own deployment zone. That would be the build, and it suddenly would be viable because you get a lot of free LMGs. Next one is the Desert Fox. Now, last summer I read a book about the war in North Africa, so of course I had to include this one. Rommel, seen here drinking something from a canteen. I don't believe it's water. Minus rum and coke, by the way. In this one, I'm also breaking the standard rules because in this one I want the Germans to be able to choose the side from your side of your outflank when they come on and not at the start of the game. This is not a massive boost, but it is a kind of nice little extra that also could do one of the things that we are rarely seeing, that people could outflank more. This would be it. And it would really be thematic because Rommel was famous for outflanking the British positions and just pushing his panzers by them. Let the Germans outflank and let them choose when they come on, where they want to come on. That would be my suggestion. Again, a little bit of a change, but not that much of a change, right? You have other units that break the outflank rules. Caucapachos, they can outflank from your own backline, right? So Next one is ambush tactics. Now, this one is actually should be in every single game of bolt action for me. We really should borrow from Infinity, the game where you have units that aren't on the board, but you take a picture with the phone, and then that's where they're at, and you just wait, and then the enemy actually goes into an ambush, which is brilliant, fun little game mechanic. But if we're keeping with the bolt action rules, I think that you should be allowed as a German player to choose this one and then buy forward deployment to 3 units. And it doesn't matter which one. You're buying it to 3 of your units in your army. That can be your Panzer, or it can be your AT gun, or it can be your howitzer, or it can be your Panzerfaust equipped Brandenburgers, or whatever. But suddenly, you are, as Germans, leaning into the forward deployment, which again is an army build, and it's an army build that no other nation has as their main build. Like, Soviets can do it, right? They have a lot of different scouts and tank hunters and all that. They can all forward deploy, but the Germans can't right now. But this could make them forward deploy, and it could make them forward deploy units that would make the game interesting, right? So for me, that's also a really good one that breaks a little bit of the rules, and it doesn't have to be 10 points per unit, but something like that. And I think it should be only 3, because otherwise you make it an all forward deploying army, which may be overpowered. But like, and 10 points for me feels like it's okay ish. So for me, that I think could be really cool, a cool addition. And then Desperate Last Stand. I mean, if we look at the last few months of Hitler's Germany, there were definitely a lot of these desperate last stands. Maybe especially against the Soviets, because they didn't want us. The Nazis didn't want to surrender to the Soviets. Funny enough, right? Um, and a lot of the SS units didn't want to surrender at all, so they fought almost until the last man. So I think if you choose this one, all SS, Hitlerjugend, and Volkssturm units gain Fanatic for free. Why not? It's thematic. It's less powerful than the Japanese. You get Fanatic on everything, but it's still cool, right? It's still thematic and not that powerful, but it would mean that you could build armies of Germans that have access to tough fighter via SMGs and assault rifles, and then Fanatic as well. So Fanatic tough fighter veterans, the dream combo of assault armies, right? So suddenly the Germans would become one of the armies to look at when you want to field assaulters. So that I think could also be really, really cool. And basically what I've done here is I just took a phrase that I vaguely associated with the German army in World War II, and I just made a rule out of them. So basically you could go on. You could like use all kinds of different words or ideas and just make a rule and just like either give free stuff, give a point reduction, give a special rule, or break the game in a small way. Each of these would make for a perfect new national special rule that the Germans could choose. I mean, one of my favorites of this whole lot would be the Luftwaffe field division, because in the theater selector Luftwaffe Defense Force, they can field barbed wire, like lines of barbed wire. Why not have something where you could put down deployables, like barbed wire, lines of rows of mines, whatever? Break the rules, be a little bit more creative, and find something new. So yeah, each of these, I guess, write in your comments down below what you think the words could actually mean. Like, what German rule would you make out of based on any of these ideas or your own, right? So let's make a big shout and make Warlord Games listen to this, because I think it's a good idea. Right. I will see you in the next video. Cheers.